Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Dean, and a while back on the Mr. Dean series, I took a look at Donkey Kong Country, and I loved it, so I thought why not go and take a look at the sequel for the Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest. So yeah, just a little bit of backstory. This is once again made by our lover boy 90s developers Rare. Rare kind of made classic game after classic game at the time, and after making a hit with Donkey Kong Country, they wanted to take a stab at doing it again. Also, I said this in the original video too, I'm not playing this on original hardware, so I will have to settle for the N64 online expansion pass for the Switch. Will playing this on a Switch Pro Controller ruin my perception of the game? Well, I hope not. Right away, you may notice that Donkey Kong is nowhere to be found. Yeah, well, King K. Rool kidnaps him and demands us to give him back our banana horde in exchange. So instead, we control Diddy Kong and his girlfriend Dixie Kong, and I'm gonna be honest, my opinion on the original game has slightly shifted now from this. In the original game, there really wasn't that much separating Donkey Kong and Diddy. Yeah, Donkey Kong did more damage to enemies, but that was about it, and honestly this never really stuck out to me until playing this game. Here Diddy Kong moves quicker, but Dixie has her own moveset, even being able to hover in the air, which is used really creatively throughout the game. This actually adds juxtaposition between the two characters, making it so you need to decide who is the best fit for any particular level. Diddy can even pick Dixie up and throw her at enemies, so there is much more going on in that department. Also, the companions in this game completely ruin my perception of the original game. Not only are there new companions in this game, but everyone has special abilities. This adds so much of the gameplay that once again you don't really notice until you have the context of playing the original. Let me reiterate here that this isn't me saying that the original game is bad. I still love it, it's just the movesets in this game are way more nuanced and fun. As for what each of the companions do, let's go ahead and run through each of them. Romby the Rhinoceros makes his triumphant return to the game, and now he has a supercharged special which you just feel so powerful whenever you use. This is used throughout the game sometimes to break walls, or you can just go really fast and beeline through enemies. Another returner is Onguard the Swordfish, still love that name, and here he is now able to break some walls underwater. This one in particular is also great to me, adding quicker mobility through the swimming stages. Squawks the Parrot allows you to fly in some levels, which is pretty difficult but in a fun way since the levels are normally designed in a really engaging way. Glimmer is an anglerfish that allows you to see in a single level, and fun fact, anglerfish are my favorite kind of fish because of that one Finding Nemo scene, so this one stood out for that reason. Rattly is kind of like a replacement for the frog from the original game. Now we got the ability to jump way higher in the air though. Squitter the spider can shoot webs at enemies and also use the webs as platforming, in which this is probably my favorite companion in the entire game. It's a lot of fun. Finally, we have Clapper the seal, who changes the temperature of water in some levels in order to make it so that you can traverse. Once again, this isn't a knock on the original game. I still really like the companions, but just the fact that there are more of them and they have different unique abilities here makes it stand out. I will say there is one very minor nitpick about this game that wasn't really in the original. That is, whenever you traverse the world map, it's weirdly more annoying than it was before. The levels used to be connected by lines, and now it just shows a tiny arrow on which direction you go. This just made it so that there were many times where I would aimlessly go through the world map trying to figure out how to get to whatever stage I was trying to go to. This wasn't a major thing by any means, it's just one thing that I noticed while playing. Okay, enough negativity though. What else was different about this game? For one thing, now whenever you end a level, you end up by jumping on a little target while a roulette goes by, and if you get enough power on your landing, then you get whatever the roulette shows. Also, I like it how whenever you do this, either Dixie or Diddy will start breakdancing or shredding on an electric guitar. It's pretty cute. A lot of the levels follow a kind of similar formula. There is K, O, N, and G letters, in which if you find all four, you get an extra life. And just like in the original game, you will need these lives because this game is hard. There are also these Donkey Kong coins which are used at the various stops on the world map. So this could either be having to pay to save your game, well assuming you've already saved it once for free at any given world, hints or other various things. We meet Swanky Kong here, who when we interact with, we can complete a quiz for an extra life, Wrinkly Kong, who allows us to save the game, and thankfully Funky Kong makes a triumphant return and once again allows us to traverse between worlds. Cranky Kong is also once again back in the game, and he has so much damn attitude for no reason. So as for the game itself, let's start off by bringing up how incredible the world map actually is. This is a point that I've seen brought up in other videos, but it is very true. The original Donkey Kong Country was much more of a cohesive game. This wasn't a bad thing, but everything definitely could become a little bit mundane and monotonous by the end. Where the first Donkey Kong Country started you off on an admittedly phenomenal first level that was kind of a generic jungle-y course, this time it starts you off on the same ship that you fought King K. Rool on in the last game. It does does the same thing as the first level from the last game, allowing the player to get fully acquainted with the movesets and get introduced to a companion. There are secrets too that aren't too hard to find, as it more so serves the purpose of revealing what secrets are to the player. I love the changing setting of the levels in the first world right off the bat. The aesthetics are wonderful. In the second level, Mainbrace Mayhem, we are at the top of the ship with the sky as a backdrop. However, in the level Topsail Trouble, it changes to being a stormy backdrop. I'll also bring up the first boss fight in the game here too, and while it isn't difficult, it wasn't really hard in the first game either, so it's whatever. What's cool about this world map though is that instead of it being our territory, we are in the Crocodile Isle now. This was my point about the setting of this game being much more dynamic. Some levels are amusement parks now, some are filled with lava, and others are deep in a jungle canopy. To some, this may be a bad thing, as there is less of a theme bringing all the worlds together, but I see it as the opposite. Each of the individual worlds has a sort of theme to them, and while it may not directly relate to the other given worlds, the gameplay is much more fresh as a result. Anyway, I'll go ahead and bring up a few more of the levels that stood out to me, specifically like I did in the original video. In World 2, the level Cannon's Claim was this gauntlet of a cannon course, and I kept dying on it. I like how it is a sharp vertical incline, and occasionally you need to react and bounce on enemies in order to properly traverse it. The level Red Hot Ride is really cool because it has this really creative concept of riding on small balloons over gusts of air and dodging enemies. It's difficult, but the fun kind of difficult. I died a lot on it, and I remember getting frustrated, but it felt so rewarding once I finally made it through. Glimmer's Galleon in World 3 is where we meet our anglerfish friend, and oh man, the swimming controls. I went easy on the swimming in the original game for some reason that I don't know, and it isn't awful, but it definitely resulted in the most annoying levels in the game, just like basically any other 2D platformer. Here it is dark with only a small beam of light allowing you to see, which this one is just miserable. The next level, Crockhead Clamber, had you jumping from vine to vine, and this one irked me because half the time the ground looked like solid ground, but it wasn't in fact ground and you would die. I absolutely adore the green hue of the backdrop on Rattle Battle. The level itself also employs our snake friend to make some high jumps as well. The next level, Slime Climb, did this cool thing with the water where it would frantically follow you up as you traverse up a boat, which added a sense of urgency to the level. Where it could have just been you slowly making your way up, instead it led to a lot of untimely deaths. I brought up in the original video too how I don't love barrel levels normally since it just kind of feels slow and annoying to me, but on Barrel Blast I like how it kind of turns this concept into a sort of maze course. You have barrels that can only shoot in specific directions, and you need to use your brain in order to make your way around. There are a few levels with a honey hive aesthetic, and they are probably the only levels in either of these two games that I think are genuinely bad. The entire color palette of the level is just orange, which makes it look so awful. Half the time you can barely tell where you are. This sucks too because the level has a really cool concept of sticking to honey in order to traverse around, but there are so many times that I would just die from not knowing where I was going. It was also just generally an eyesore to look at. The next level, Target Terror, is another one of our lovely roller coaster levels, except this time we go at the speed of sound and need to hit specific barrels in order to open up gates. Some barrels you need to not hit with quick reflexes too, but I like this level overall, it was pretty fun. Then the next level was an actual f***ing nightmare. You use squawks to fly around, and I think I died like 15 times in here. The level Rickety Race was pretty fun, where you control a roller coaster and you need to take out 10 enemies while staying on the tracks. I really like it. Not to go over every single level by the way, but there are just a lot of standouts here. Mudhole Marsh is the 5th level of World 4, and I think I died like 25 times here with how obnoxious it was. You jump from vines and dodge enemies, and I don't know what it was specifically, but this level was just hard. World 5 is the Spooky World, which I actually kind of wish was a thing in the original game. The first level has an interesting gimmick of these bars appearing and disappearing, but they stayed accessible for too long for it to really be difficult. Haunted Hall is another roller coaster stage where you have a Grim Reaper following you, and of course I was terrified while playing this. You need to hit specific barrels in order to keep a timer going up, so that way you can stay alive, and I definitely died my fair share of times here. Another really difficult stage here is Ghostly Grove, with a heavy supply of wind in either direction, occasionally making it so you need to time your jumps accordingly. Finally, in World 5, the level Web Woods had you using a spider to slowly traverse up and across gaps, which is a good use of the ability and completely changed the pace of play. Instead of beelining through levels, now you have to kind of meticulously time your jumps in order to make it across. I'm gonna be real, as a whole this game is significantly more challenging than the first game, which was already difficult. In the final full world world really drives this point home. I died so many times on these levels, the platforming was genuinely so difficult. Whether this was the gigantic tower gauntlet or a level where you need to slowly let wind drag you up to the top while you avoid enemies, this was probably the hardest platforming set of levels I have ever played. Then right before the final boss fight we got Screech's sprint, and oh boy. I like how this level makes really smart use of Diddy and Dixie's movesets while jumping across gaps. If you do a roll move and then jump in midair, you can safely make it through these, albeit it is very difficult to pull it off a lot of the time. It also features an absolutely terrifying race using squawks, and this was the most stressful moment of my entire life leading up to this point. This increase in difficulty is a really good thing though. It made it so rewarding to finally beat King K. Rool, and well, let's go ahead and talk about that final boss fight. He shoots cannonballs at you, you pick them up and throw them back at him whenever he activates his suction ability. Compared to the final boss fight of the first game, which don't get me wrong was definitely difficult, this one is a long and difficult fight. The game is gracious enough to give you different DK barrels as a lifeline, but you needing to hit him 9 times kind of negates it. Specifically, the final stage of this fight was challenging and it was absolutely brutal if you died on the final hit. Finally, another really cool feature of this game is the post-game content. Basically, if you collect enough crim coins throughout the game and you go to Clubba's kiosk, you can pay to go to a special world called the Lost World. I didn't have enough time to grind for these coins since I didn't know this until the end of making this video, so I wasn't able to actually play it, but I fully intend on returning back to this game in the future and probably doing a 100% run. And this finally brings us to the inevitable question, what was better, the original or this? It's Donkey Kong Country 2. Dixie and Diddy play so differently that there is so much added nuance to the gameplay. I mean, they can even do moves together. The companions have additions as well to their movesets, which adds to this. The first game was hard, but after the second world in this game, every single level made me die at least once, which in my opinion is a beautiful thing since I had to actually earn beating the final boss. Yes, I felt like I earned it playing through the original DKC, but it definitely was a little bit different. Literally the only real complaint I have for the sequel is the Honey Hive levels, which once again they weren't a complete catastrophe, I just didn't like the way they looked. The concept they used was really cool too, so it had that going for it. So yeah, it seems that the Donkey Kong Country series had a real sequel come into play that took nothing away from the original and added to the magic. So I guess sometime in the future in the Mr. Dean series, the question will be, can the third game repeat the magic once again? Thank you for watching, and as always, peace out.